If you're 60, this might be your first real chance to finally live the life you were meant to live. Not what the world told you, not what your job demanded, but you. And I'm going to show you why this might be the most powerful chapter of your life. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked around and wondered, is this all there is? Is it too late to change now? Maybe the house is quieter. Maybe the calendar is not as full. Maybe you've been holding back a dream for 20 years. You wake up and think, what's the point of starting over at 60? Well, here's the truth. You're not starting over. You're finally starting with wisdom. Do you know that George Eastman started Kodak at 62? Grandma Moses didn't start painting until she was 78. Peter Mark Raji invented the thesaurus in his 70s. And in the modern world, millions of people in the United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand are reinventing themselves in their 60s and thriving. Because today, 60 is not what it used to be. By the way, before I go deeper, I want to know where you're listening from. Are you in the US, Canada, the UK, Australia? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear from you. Really, let me know where this message is changing lives. Also, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't. That way, I know you appreciate what I do here. This video will open your eyes in a way you didn't expect. Now, let's get into why this moment, this exact season of your life, is the perfect moment to begin again. You've done all the right things, worked hard, paid your bills, maybe raised a family, and yet something is missing. It's not uncommon to feel unseen after 60. The world often whispers, it's time to slow down. Let the younger ones take over. But what if I told you that's not just a lie? It's a dangerous lie. You see, experience is the ultimate currency, and you've been earning interest for 60 years. Let me say that again. You've been collecting wisdom, skills, and resilience for 6 decades. That's more value than most 30-year-olds can even imagine. But society rarely tells you this. They reward speed, not depth, trends, not legacy. So ask yourself, are you living on momentum from your past or building for your future? In a few minutes, I'm going to share how one American woman started a $1 million business from her kitchen at age 63 without tech skills or investors, and the mindset shift that unlocked her success. But first, I want to give you something else, a new lens. Think about everything you've survived. Economic crashes, loss, career burnout. You've been tested repeatedly, and what's still here? So why does the world tell you your best days are behind you? Because it fears what a fully awake, fully alive, fully experienced human might do with their time, focus, and freedom. You are no longer reacting. You're choosing at 60. You don't chase approval. You own your perspective. You don't just learn lessons. You live them. There's a power in that, and it's rare. So, if you're wondering, but what can I even do now? Hang on, because this is just the beginning. Let me show you something most people miss. The older you get, the less you have to prove, and the less you have to prove, the more power you have to create, because creation needs clarity, and clarity often comes after the storms. You've probably been through 4 or 5 different life phases already. Each one broke something, but built something stronger underneath. Think about it. You've managed households, relationships, finances, crises. You've supported others while hiding your own doubts. You've learned when to speak and when to stay silent. That's not just life. That's leadership training. Maybe God didn't give you the dream earlier because you weren't ready. Maybe the prayer you whispered in your 40s is being answered now in your 60s. So instead of asking, why didn't this happen before? Ask, what if now is divine timing? What's something you've always wanted to do but thought you were too old for? Leave it in the comments. You'll be surprised how many others feel the same. Take 10 seconds, close your eyes. Picture your life 1 year from now if you finally started the book, started the business, started painting again, started that community project, started speaking, started believing, Can you see it? That's not fantasy. That's potential. And potential doesn't expire. Here's your first action step. Take out a notebook right now and write this question at the top. What would I do if I knew it wasn't too late? Then write whatever comes to mind. No filters, no judgment, just possibilities. That's how every new life begins, with the courage to imagine. Again, we'll talk about the 3 biggest lies society tells you about age and how those lies are silently destroying the dreams of millions over 60 before the end of this video. But once you see through them, you become unstoppable. So stay with me. We're just getting warmed up, because by the end of this journey, you'll see why your time is just beginning. Section 1. The power of starting at 60. You might think that starting something new at 60 is a daunting task, but let me share with you the stories of individuals who have proven otherwise. In New York City, there's a woman named Eleanor who at the age of 63 decided to open a bakery specializing in traditional American desserts. She had spent her life as a homemaker, baking for her family and friends. But when her children moved out and her husband retired, she felt a void in her life. Instead of succumbing to the quietness of her home, Eleanor turned her passion for baking into a thriving business. Within 2 years, her bakery became a local favorite, not just for the delicious treats, but for the warmth and stories Eleanor shared with her customers. She told me, "I waited my whole life to give myself permission to do this. Now, I'm not just baking, I'm sharing a piece of my heart with every customer." Eleanor's story is a testament to the fact that starting something new in your 60s can lead to personal fulfillment and success. Another inspiring example comes from Los Angeles, where Robert, a retired engineer, decided to start a YouTube channel teaching seniors how to use technology. At 62, he felt disconnected from the digital world and saw many of his peers struggling with the same issue. Robert began creating simple, straightforward videos on everything from setting up a smartphone to navigating social media. His channel quickly gained popularity, and today he has over 1 million subscribers. Robert told me, "I thought I was too old to learn new things, but teaching others has given me a new purpose. It's never too late to start something that matters." These stories illustrate that the wisdom and experience you've gained over the years can be the foundation for a new and rewarding chapter in your life. Let's take a moment to reflect on what you might want to start at this stage in your life. What passion have you set aside due to the demands of life? Is it painting, writing, gardening, or perhaps starting a small business? Take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and jot down 3 things you've always wanted to try but never had the time or courage to pursue. Now, imagine how your life could change if you took that first step. It's not about becoming rich or famous. It's about living a life that feels true to who you are. So, if you're feeling inspired, drop a comment below and let me know what you're thinking about starting. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on more stories like these. Transitioning into the next section, let's explore how the modern economy is shifting in a way that favors the seasoned wisdom of those over 60. Section 2. The new economy and the value of experience. The future belongs to the seasoned. Let that sink in for a moment, because for decades, you've been fed the opposite. Young minds are faster. Young people are more adaptable. They're better with technology. They understand where the world is going. Right. But here's the part nobody's talking about. The modern economy is running into problems that only seasoned minds can solve. And here's the wild twist. While younger people are still trying to learn how to think clearly, you've been doing it under pressure for decades. And the world needs that more than ever. Let me explain. We're living in a time of instant answers, not deep thinking. You open social media and there's a 23-year-old trying to teach you how to be rich. You ask a question on Google and an AI spits out 5 quick hacks. But the world doesn't need more hacks. It needs judgment. It needs emotional intelligence. It needs calm under pressure. And those are things a 25-year-old can offer at scale, not because they're not smart, but because they haven't lived long enough to see the patterns. Let me share a story from Chicago. There's a man named Michael, 61 years old, who had worked in manufacturing his entire life, overseeing production lines and managing teams. For decades, he was just part of the system, a cog. Then in 2022, a major supply chain crisis hit the U.S. Factory shutdowns, shipping delays, raw material shortages. You know who they called? Michael. Not some tech bro with a slide deck, not a 30-year-old analyst with spreadsheets. They called the guy who knew where every choke point lived because he'd walked it, fixed it, worked it for over 30 years. He didn't just help, he redesigned part of their supply chain. Now he consults globally for companies who used to ignore him. And here's the lesson. When the world gets complicated, the world calls experience. And you, my friend, are carrying more of that than you give yourself credit for. Here's another from San Francisco. Susan, age 65, was a retired school teacher. She thought she'd take it easy after retirement. Then during the recent economic downturn, thousands of families were struggling to keep up with their children's education. Susan launched an online tutoring program for seniors who had been educators. Within a year, over 2,000 retired teachers were helping thousands of kids across North America catch up. You want to hear the punchline. Most of the volunteers said they felt more alive than they had in 20 years. Because they were finally being needed again. And not in a shallow way, in a mission-critical way. You might think your value has gone down with age, but that's because you've been looking at the wrong scoreboard. You've been measuring yourself against youth culture, but the real economy, the one that solves real problems, is quietly being rebuilt by people who've lived enough life to understand those problems. And that's you. Let's get interactive for a moment. I want you to do this right now in the comments. Tell me the one thing you've mastered over the years. Could be a skill, a mindset, a routine, a field. What's your real-world wisdom? Drop it below, not just for me. Drop it for everyone else here who needs to see how valuable your experience is. Whether you're in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, or any other city. Post it below. I'm reading them all. You have no idea how many people your story can awaken. Now, here's the big twist. There's a global workforce crisis happening right now. But nobody's talking about the solution. Governments are panicking about aging populations. Companies are struggling to find dependable talent. AI is replacing repetitive jobs, but not relational ones. And who's the missing link? You. People with emotional range. People who failed and rebounded. People who know how to lead quietly, not chase titles. In the US right now, over 15% of the workforce is over 60, and guess what? They have lower stress, fewer absences, and higher mentorship ratings than their younger counterparts. Some companies even prefer to hire post-retirement age employees because they bring something rare in this chaotic economy: stability. You know how to weather storms. You've already done it. You don't need to be handheld. That's not a liability. That's the gold standard. Here's a question I want you to think about tonight. What if everything you've survived wasn't just life experience, but actual marketable currency? What if your setbacks were assets? What if your quiet strength is the exact medicine this noisy world is begging for? I want to show you how to turn that into something real. But not yet. That's coming before the end of this video. We're building this step by step because transformation isn't a moment. It's a reawakening, and I want you fully awake by the time we get there. Next, we're going to talk about something personal. Why 60 is the most emotionally intelligent decade of your life, and how that unlocks leadership, relationships, and healing. This is where things shift inward. Final thought. Let's cut to the truth. You've been taught your age is a liability. That wisdom is just a nice word for old. That experience belongs in a rocking chair. But what if I told you wisdom is the greatest hidden asset in today's world? And if you're 60 or older, you're already sitting on gold. You just haven't learned how to spend it. In a moment, I'll show you how one 74-year-old woman in Miami turned a lifetime of knowledge into a thriving micro-business without touching social media or digital tools. See, the world is obsessed with youth, startups, disruption, speed, tech, all great things. But here's the problem. Youth often has ideas without insight, speed without strategy, confidence without calibration, and that's where you come in. Because you've lived through more recessions, you've seen inflation, crashes, politics, cycles. You know how to think beyond TikTok trends. But if no one tells you that your wisdom matters, you'll sit quietly while the world burns down, repeating the mistakes you already survived. Let me take you to Savannah, Georgia. There's a woman named Margaret, age 74. For most of her life, she made traditional quilts, using techniques passed down from her grandmother. Hand-stitched, hand-dyed, crafted with absolute care. For years, she sold her work at the local farmer's market. Nothing flashy, just a table, a chair, and her warm smile. Then one day, a young couple visiting from Boston stopped by and asked, "Why do your quilts feel softer than the ones in the shops?" She smiled and said, "Because I don't rush. Fabric knows when you're in a hurry." They ended up staying 40 minutes just listening to her stories about slow crafting and the old values of making things that last. A few weeks later, that couple returned with a friend who ran a boutique hotel. Margaret's quilts became their exclusive bedding. Today, she can't keep up with the orders, but she doesn't want to. She says, "I only make 8 pieces a week. I'm not trying to scale. I'm trying to stay in love with the process." And guess what? People wait months for her work because they're not buying quilts. They're buying a story, a feeling, a way of life. And that's what wisdom sells. So let me ask you something. What do you know so well that people come to you for advice even if you don't charge for it? Is it cooking, fixing things, gardening, managing money, encouraging others, speaking truth when people are afraid? That's wisdom, and it's waiting to be monetized, shared, passed down. But first, you have to stop calling it nothing. I want you to do this today. Take a notebook or your phone and make a list of 10 things I've learned the hard way. Not theory, real lessons you earned with sweat, loss, mistakes, failure, and time. Then ask yourself, who in my community or family is about to face these same problems? Because the most powerful thing you can do isn't start a company, it's shorten someone else's learning curve. That's impact, that's legacy, that's leverage. In a small town near Austin, Texas, I met a man named Thomas, age 67, after retiring from a career in finance. He did something shocking. He didn't slow down. He started volunteering at a local community center, not as a teacher, but as a wisdom advisor. His job: keep people grounded, help them navigate life's challenges, teach them how to think long-term. When I asked him why, he simply said, "Money changes every day, but good judgment, that's timeless." Guess what? Local businesses now pay Thomas to mentor their young employees, not on finance, but on how to handle pressure, ethics, and failure. He doesn't even handle money anymore, but his wisdom saves companies thousands in employee turnover. You've been told to move fast and break things, but maybe what the world needs now is someone who moves slow and builds things that last. That's you. If you've raised a family, built a career, survived heartbreak, buried loved ones, you are qualified to lead whether anyone gave you a title or not. You know, wisdom isn't just information, it's divine filtration. It's what God gives you after you've endured storms you didn't think you'd survive. And if you're still standing, that means you're carrying something someone else is desperately praying for right now. You're the answer to someone's question, the guide for someone else's confusion, the calm for someone else's chaos, but only if you choose to speak. Next, I'm going to show you how to take your wisdom and turn it into a second career, a mentorship movement, or even a brand. So don't miss it. Here's the hard truth. If you don't use what life gave you, you'll end up watching someone with half your wisdom lead people nowhere. And that's not just frustrating. It's dangerous because the next generation, they're not looking for perfection. They're desperate for direction. But here's the kicker. They're not going to ask for your wisdom. You'll have to offer it intentionally, creatively, even quietly. But when you do, you become the guide. You become the mirror. You become the person you wish you had at 25. Let me show you exactly how, step by step, with real stories from people just like you. Take a second and answer this in your head. What is one thing you've learned the hard way that you would never want your grandchild to go through? Got it. That's the seed of your second life. You don't need to become a social media influencer. You need to become a trusted voice. And in this next story, you'll see how that changes lives. Even in a tiny town in the heartland of America, in a quiet village in Kansas, there's a man named John, aged 68. For decades, John made furniture by hand. His shop was small and his income was modest. He never imagined becoming anything more than a craftsman. But when the economic downturn hit, sales dried up, shops closed, orders vanished, and John thought it was over until his daughter convinced him to host a furniture-making demonstration on Zoom for her woodworking class in New York. He was terrified. He didn't speak publicly well. He wasn't tech-savvy. He had no idea where to start. But the students loved it. They asked questions. They laughed. They learned. So he did it again and again. Today, John runs virtual workshops every month for international universities, earning 5 times what he used to, all from his home. But more than money, John says. Now, I don't just make furniture. I make a difference. And it all started because he was willing to teach what he already knew. Let me ask you, what do people always thank you for? What do friends call you about? What skill feels so natural to you? You assume it's just normal? That's not normal. That's your genius in disguise. The key to your next chapter isn't in reinventing yourself. It's in rediscovering what you've already survived. And it doesn't have to be big. Let me show you. Meet Linda, a retired librarian in Seattle who used to work in public libraries. Books, stories, and community. Nothing fancy, nothing digital. After retiring, she felt invisible until one day she posted on a local forum. Here's how I helped my grandson discover the joy of reading with just 3 simple steps. It went viral because she used simple language, honest stories, and zero hype. Today, Linda runs a tiny online newsletter teaching the joy of reading, storytelling, and community building. She now has over 30,000 subscribers across the US, and she calls it her retirement project. She doesn't sell courses. She just shares what's real, what works, because authenticity is the new influence. Let's do something powerful right now. Write this down. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was 30. Just that. Then finish the sentence in 1 paragraph or 1 line. Now ask yourself, who needs this right now? A neighbor, a friend's kid, someone online. Congratulations. You've just written your first mentorship message. The next step is simply sharing it. This isn't about starting a business. It's about starting a ripple. Because in God's economy, nothing you've lived through is wasted. The pain redeemable, the regret usable, the lessons priceless, but only if you release them. Legacy isn't about being remembered. It's about helping someone else avoid the mistakes you barely survived. In Denver, Colorado, a retired nurse named Patricia had one thing on her heart: compassion. After losing her husband, her brother, and 2 patients she deeply loved, she said, "I needed a place to heal, but I didn't want therapy. I wanted connection." So she started a compassion circle in her home. Tea, candles, and open chairs. 3 people came the first time, then 8, then 20. Now, Patricia leads compassion circles in public libraries, online Zoom rooms, and even hospitals free of charge. She doesn't have a platform, but she's transformed over 400 lives, all by leading with her heart, not her resume. So here's the real question. Are you going to take your wisdom to the grave, or will you finally start using it like the divine currency it is? Because here's the truth. You don't need more credentials. You need courage to speak from what you know. Next, we're going to unlock something life-changing. How your personal story, flaws, failures, fears, and all can become your most valuable legacy tool. We'll walk through exactly how to craft your story, use it to mentor others, and turn it into a message that can live on long after you're gone. And we'll also talk about the 3 biggest lies society tells you about age. You don't want to miss it because that's where everything comes full circle. In Boston, there's a man named Richard, a retired firefighter. At 73, he believed no one cared about his story. He wasn't famous. He didn't go to university. He didn't write a book. But his grandson, aged 10, was struggling at school, bullied and anxious. One day, Richard sat him down and told him how, as a child, he had been hit, humiliated, and called worthless. But that's why he learned how to protect others, because he wanted to make a difference. That story, it gave his grandson a blueprint for resilience. But more than that, his daughter posted it. It went viral. Thousands commented, because one man's buried trauma became another generation's anchor. Your story isn't small. It's just been silent. Here's the trap. You think your story needs to sound like a TED Talk. Wrong. What people want is real. Let me tell you about Elizabeth in Texas. Divorced, 2 bankruptcies, a son in rehab. She believed her life was a cautionary tale, not a testimony, until she started writing letters to struggling moms in her church bulletin. She didn't preach. She didn't pretend. She wrote like she was writing to herself 10 years ago. Today, Elizabeth runs a nonprofit mentorship circle for single mothers in 5 states. No platform, no fame. Just a story told honestly. The story you think disqualifies you is the exact story that makes people trust you. You don't need fancy words. You need 3 moments. 1, the crash. Tell them what broke you. What moment humbled you? 2, the mirror. What did you realize about yourself in that pain? 3, the shift. What action did you take? Even if it was tiny. Let me show you this in action from San Diego. In San Diego, California, a man named Carlos opened a cafe, not for profit, but for people recovering from addiction. Because 10 years ago, Carlos was sleeping on the street. One stranger offered him coffee and a conversation. That's it. Carlos said that cup of coffee made him feel human again. So when he got clean, he opened a shop with no prices, just a donation jar and a place to talk. Today, his cafe is a gathering place for people who felt invisible. His story is painted on the wall. Once I was nothing. Then someone saw me, so now I'll see you. That's the power of storytelling, when it's not about spotlight, but about service. Here are the 3 biggest lies society tells you about age that are keeping you silent. Lie number 1, you're too old to start over. The truth is, wisdom compounds. Action after 50 isn't late. It's legendary. Benjamin Franklin became a statesman at 70. Colonel Sanders franchised KFC at 62. And that cafe in San Diego. Carlos opened it at 58. Don't count your age. Count your scars. They're your resume. Lie number 2. No one wants to hear your story. The truth is, people are drowning in noise. What they're begging for is truth, not filled with perfection, but real, raw, earned wisdom. If you're over 40, you've survived something someone else hasn't yet, and that makes your story a map. Lie number 3. It's selfish to focus on your story. The truth is, it's selfish not to. When you withhold your story, you withhold a survival guide someone else is praying for. It's not ego, it's legacy. Your past wasn't a waste. It's the seed of someone else's healing. Let's do something brave right now. Right here. Write this down. 1. Before I learn to forgive. before I found peace, before I admitted I was lost. 2. Then I realized one sentence that tells the truth. 3. Now I help who with what? Even if it's just one person, that is your legacy story. It doesn't need millions of followers. It needs one listener, one heart. Because if your story changes just one life, then it was already worth it. Let me tell you what happens when you don't tell your story. Someone else, less wise, less honest, less kind, will take your place. They'll offer noise where you had clarity. They'll offer hype where you had healing. And that is not okay because you have earned this wisdom. You have bled for it. You have carried it through storms no one saw. Now you get to give it away. Say this out loud right now. I survived for a reason, and starting today, I'm going to speak like it because here's the truth. You are the message. You are the mentor. You are the mirror someone's been begging God to find. So here's what I want you to do tonight. Record a voice memo. Write one email. Tell one person one thing you've learned that cost you everything. That's how you start. Not with fame, not with likes, but with love. Your life was not meant to end in silence. It was meant to echo. Check my playlist for more videos like this. I will see you in the next one.